Hello, everyone, and welcome to round 8 here on day 2 of the World Magic Cup in Amsterdam. I'm Brian David Marshall. I'm joined by Luis Scott Vargas, and we are about to watch Team Hungary versus Team Austria in Return to Ravnica Team Sealed. Luis, tell us about what's going on here on each side of the table.
So we've got Tomasz Nog here. He was on the play and has a turn to Drudge Beetle, which against Reitbauer's a slightly slower Bant deck isn't a bad start. He was really looking for a second Swamp to play in Underworld Connections here on turn 3. We'll see if he hit, and it looks like he unfortunately did not. Well,
one of the things we noticed when we were looking over the decks, it looks like the Austrian team went much leaner and meaner in their deck builds. You know, 2-color decks as close as possible, while the Hungarian team seemed to have a lot of 3-color decks, which we see already in play here for.
Yeah, and as I was talking with Ben Stark earlier, he's actually going to do a piece later about building these sealed decks. You really do want to try to focus on as many 2-color decks as possible, which is kind of weird in this 5-color format. But you generally want to concentrate all your gold cards in one deck, and then go with the 2 powerful guilds you end up with, which Hungary might not have had that option. I didn't see their whole pool.
Right. Interestingly, of course, though, Reitbauer, the deck we're starting on, is the 3-color deck.
He is their gatekeeper deck. You often will see a deck with a bunch of the gatekeepers because they offer a lot of power if you can get 5+ gates in your deck.
And then we see him play a gate for turn 4, and
yeah, it looks like we've got a Scab Clan Charger against a Towering Indrix, so the battle of the 2/4s.
Oh, and there is a Golgari Longlegs for Tomasz Nog.
Yeah, and it looks like he might have been able to play Underworld Connections, but just playing the 5-drop is generally better. Right. Connections is good once you kind of have a good board, and so developing
and
your board
once
is
you've played
more
out
important.
your hand and both players are sort of empty, and you're going 2 cards a turn versus them going 1 card a turn.
Yeah, I mean, if you had it on turn 3, that might have been a little different, but at this point, since his option was to play the 5-drop or the Underworld Connections, I like just playing the 5-drop.
Here comes Courser's Accord, make a Centaur, and then proliferate generally the Centaur you just made.
Yeah, I mean, every now and then you get to make a a giant elemental or something, but that isn't all that often. So this game is kind of playing into Reitbauer's hands. He's got a Collective Blessing in his deck, so he's kind of looking to just stall the board. But the Underworld Connections actually gives Tomasz a kind of better plan here once he gets enough creatures onto the board. And as expected, actual Centaurs are joined the table.
Pair of Centaurs versus a pair of Longlegs.
Yeah, the long legs of the law. But unfortunately, you can't really hit Golgari Longlegs into a pair of Centaurs all that well. You end up trading a 5/4 for a 3/3, which, yeah, not the best value.
Looks like Reitbauer is holding a Species Gorger and a blue Gatekeeper. Oh, and Chorus of the Conclave, which,
yeah.
A card, I know a lot of people don't like it, but I find it to be a green fireball.
Yeah, especially later in the game. You end up attacking with everyone, and whatever they block with the smallest creature, you just, give +7/+7 and trample. He also has a Simic Charm, so he's pretty well set up going forward with some tricks here. If he draws a second gate, too, he can start going off with Species Gorger and Gatekeeper.
AKA the dream.
Yeah. Tomasz does have Ready Willing in hand, though, and Ready Willing is another really good late-game card. Giving your whole team indestructible Death Touch and a lifelink can lead to some pretty big blowouts, especially since there's so many cards in this format, especially when your opponent has 3 colors worth of mana up. It's really hard to play around, all that you end up with.
Yeah, what's the total cost to fuse Ready Willing? I think we could look at.
It's 6 mana, double white, green black.
That doesn't seem very bad. I mean, it's essentially an instant speed Collective Blessing.
Yeah, it has basically the same effect. Your opponent, if they know about it, can play around it, since then it doesn't make you actually deal more damage. So if you suspect it, you can maybe take a hit or whatever. But because it untaps your whole team, if they don't block you, they can't attack you if they want to play around it. So the best way ends up being is trying to get in a fight with maybe a couple of your creatures, not the whole squad.
Right. Krakenora and a Lotleth Troll.
Thank you.
Conveniently evolving the Krakenora. So, yeah, it looks like I would not be surprised to see a Ready Willing, come into being over the next couple turns here. He's got a lot of power on the board. Like 13 power just in play, or even more than that, actually, 18 power in play. And potentially more if he ends up wanting to discard a lot left troll, though of course we know that he doesn't really have anything in hand to discard quite yet.
And still sitting on that Underworld connections.
Yeah, so far he's consistently chosen just to play creatures instead, which if you have Ready Willing in hand makes a lot of sense. You would rather just get as many creatures into play as possible and then set up a giant Ready Willing, especially when your opponent can't really afford to take too much damage. Though the life totals are pretty high still. Another little combo there is a Species Gorger pulls back Scabclan Charger, which then lets you Blood Rush it.
It sounds like Thomas Holzinger's won game 1 for Team Austria over Korbel of Hungary with a Pack Rat.
Well, that tends to do it.
Rumor has it you're going to be thanking Pack Rat in your Hall of Fame speech.
Well, I don't know how much it helped me hit the Hall of Fame, but it did help me hit Platinum this year. If I didn't have Pack Rat Mortars in 2 of the Grand Prix earlier this year, I think I might have been in trouble.
Judge Beetle jumps in the way of Species Gorger.
Yeah, it's a little early to chump block, but you can scavenge Drudge Beetle, so it might be that Nog is looking at making a giant lot left troll. Additionally, you could make it so one of your Golgari Longlegs trades for both Centaurs instead of just one. But Right Bowers, no shortage of creatures here.
So it sounds like the 2-color decks for Team Austria have gotten off to a quick start, and it sounds like Molbeck has taken game 1 against Coxus in the other match.
Wow. So yeah, I mean that's one of the advantages of playing 2-color decks. When you have a match or a game that's finished in 4 minutes, it's generally in favor of the 2-color deck, not the 3-color deck.
Right. And again, when we looked at the Hungarian deck list, it looked like all three members of their teams were playing 3 colors.
Yeah, they've got slightly more colorful decks than I think you'd want going into the format, but again, depending on how their pool was open, they might not have had many options. Well, you're always going to have options. They might not have had many great options. And this looks like it could be a good turn. I mean, this really depends on how David ends up blocking here, since he could make catastrophic blocks depending on if Tomas is just going to go for it this turn.
I may not be a Hall of Famer, but catastrophic blocks seem like a bad thing.
No, that's generally not a positive thing. But as I mentioned before, I've played against David Reitbauer, and he has a lot of experience. So an all-out attack like this could definitely signal to him that something's up. And I wouldn't be surprised if he could actually decipher Ready Willing from his opponent playing the 6th land, having the right mana for this kind of difficult to cast card, and just attacking with everything. So it'd be interesting to see what he does in response to this.
Also, the confident smirk on Tomas's face.
Yeah, he's not hiding his jubilation all that well, so I would be. I'd be surprised if David could get out of this without some form of casualties, because like I mentioned before, if you just don't block, are you just not going to attack next turn, and then what are you doing the turn after? You're at 2, or less than that. He actually has to block something here. I guess the saving grace for him is that Species Gorger is going to survive this combat one way or the other. So he's got some sort of ammunition left in the tank, and then that's one of the big reasons not to block with Brush Strider here is that first of all it's got no real positive blocks. The second is if you end up losing all your creatures but the Species Gorger, it will return to your hand, and I don't think that David can really afford to replay it here and not advance his board.
I'm on 16, right? Yeah, sure.
Sounds like he was consulting with his team a little bit too.
Yeah, he was originally double blocking one of those long legs and decided to just move to something a little, almost more like just finding ways that his creatures are just going to bounce off of them.
Yeah, right now this kills none of Nog's creatures.
But it also kills none of Reitbauer's creatures.
Exactly. As it turns out, I think Reitbauer's going to lose a lot of creatures. So both players investigate the complicated card. Tomas is ready and willing to take a little 3-for-1 here, though. Also, he doesn't mind gaining a nice little chunk of life, a little 16 life here.
It was a mind trick for me. This is why I count those.
And just death touch your team away.
Yeah, lose nothing. Not even the lot left troll, even though he didn't regenerate, since
it's indestructible.
Yeah. Reitbauer
confirming the laundry list of things this card does.
Yep. See, he actually did lose the Species Gorger, as it turns out. Yeah, there were really no blocks that would let Reitbauer really win that game.
Yeah, no, some of Reitbauer's ancestors lost cards in that combat.
Yeah.
Looking to ignite your competitive spark? Take your game to a Grand Prix and see how you fare against the best players in your region, as well as the top visiting pros. Upcoming Grand Prix include Warsaw, Oakland, Kitakyushu, and Prague. For more information, visit wizards.com/Grand Prix.
This was the plan, this was my starting hand.
You see the players moving around their chairs there.
Yeah, there's their coach rotates.
Yeah, it's been interesting. The coaches are rotating and sort of learning to work in concert with the cameramen.
Yeah.
who are switching around to as we change matches.
I was actually talking with the U.S. team, and it's actually dramatically different when you're in a feature match versus not a feature match, because the coach can't actually watch all 3 matches. It's just not possible. So you really do have to prioritize. I mean, normally the coaches can't really pay attention and be fully briefed on all 3 matches anyway. But this does mean you do have to commit to watching a match or 2 and then moving, actually, if you want to watch the other match. It was kind of interesting, that game as well, since Ready Ruling was in Nog's opening hand. He never actually had a good time to deploy the Underworld connections, because all he wanted to do was play creature every turn, and he was able to just go creature, 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 attack with everything.
So we've switched tables. And we are looking at Thomas Holzinger, Pro Tour Avacyn Restored top 8 competitor, on your left, versus, I'm going to try to say this correctly, Aderjan Korbel
and
from Hungary.
The third competitor in this match would be the Pack Rat in Thomas Holzinger's opening hand. So, as Korbel mulligans, this could be a short one. I mean, Pack Rat, it does what it does very efficiently, which is to make a 2-2, then a 3-3, then a 4-4. So you taking a look at Korbel's list here, see what removal he has that could potentially kill a Pack Rat early. Unfortunately, he's actually the red-blue-white deck, which doesn't have a ton of options. It does have a turn burn. So if he's able to open on a turn burn, he's got a pretty good shot here. Dramatic Rescue does at least buy some time, and Holzinger might not have a third land. So if he doesn't, then that is another, that might actually be Korbel's best shot to win. I mean, the best way to beat Pack Rat is have it never get activated, so. You can actually beat Pack Rat with a really, really aggressive start, and that is something that Korbel is capable of, since his...
A card I've seen beat it, active, and it's a weird card, is Swift Justice.
Yeah, there's a couple reasons for that. One is that the life does mean that you might win a race. The second is that first striking down the Pack Rat, it's a domino effect. Once a Pack Rat dies in combat, you often see all the Pack Rats die in combat.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when it happens.
Yeah, we had a pretty nice one at Grand Prix Providence, playing against the Canadians' Lucas Siao's team, and we drew a Weapon Surge on the perfect turn to cast Weapon Surge and just knock down the entire row of Pack Rats.
It sounds like on the middle table, we are tied at 1 game apiece, with Gabor Coxis tying it up against Mark Wolbach. Those do not seem... Oh boy. And he's pitching that back. He has no idea.
No hesitation there. I mean, I don't think that's a normally keepable hand. It's just a 1 land and a turn burn, but... The fact
one land and a turn burn might have been good enough.
The fact that we know if I knew my opponent for sure was playing a turn 2 Pack Rat, I think I might keep that. I'm not I'm not saying that he should have been psychic there.
You're not a keep scientist, as Rashad would say.
Yeah, I'm starting to suspect that Bennis is not a scientist at all, since he's the one who came up with the "I'm not a scientist" line. But all right, so there's still he's got. Definitely, Korbel definitely has a number of ways to win this game. The most common being just, again, Holzinger not playing a land Pack Rat. But if he's able to turn burn the Pack Rat and then just play a couple flyers, I mean, flyers do also race Pack Rat quite well.
Right. is Holzinger's hand a hand you would keep without a pack rat?
Most two-lane hands in a Rakdos deck are pretty decent, so I imagine I would, but it's hard to tell without seeing the rest of the cards.
All right, and he does keep the 5-card hand and is underway with a Boros Guildgate.
Yeah, so it looks like there is only one land in Holzinger's hand, so he's going to get to sweat his land draws. Oh, they didn't last very long.
Here you go. Draw your turn and burn.
All right, and do we got a turn burn? No, we have an Azorius Guildgate. The Psy pass. It is funny, though, there is a little bit of pressure on you when you have a pack rat out, because you don't want to be the guy who loses with pack rat. So you always have to think, like, what could they have? Should I attack
Especially
here?
in a team event.
Yeah, especially in a team event.
We gave you the pack rat.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We gave you the pack rat for a reason.
We gave you a pack rat and all these 6 drops for a reason.
Yeah, so I could go right to the graveyard. They even have the right rat tokens, awesome.
So that rat becomes a 2/2. The token is an exact copy of it.
So even if the original rat dies, the token can actually breed more rats.
Yeah.
Oh, look, another 6 drop.
How convenient.
So now Adderjan has enough mana that he could be playing. There's a variety of different tricks he could play. Still pretty hard to get away from just attacking with both pack rats after discarding here. Because even something like Azorius Hussar Patrol doesn't actually stop pack rat. They're all 3/3s. Looking at Korbel, he's a mana away from even casting anything. Though Void Wielder does fight against pack rat, it's going to kill one of the tokens, and then he can totally lost another copy, maybe smite another copy. So if he draws a land, he can put up some resistance. If he doesn't draw a land this turn,
there's the land.
There we go. This will keep him alive at least.
Any thought to whether you, you hit a token, obviously.
Yeah, it's no real choice there. that would be convenient.
Like to discard this rat token to make another rat token.
Yeah. It looks like Holzinger's never going to hit a 4th land, and it's never going to matter.
So on table 1, it's looking like this could go to Hungary. A Sylvan Primordial has just resolved.
Well, that is a nice
that
one.
game is over. So Thomas Nog takes 2-0 against David Reitbauer.
And it looks like there might have been a Varels involved as well. So, so it looks like it might be down to the middle match unless things turn around dramatically here.
Let me see, Blasted Genius.
As much as I like Blasted Genius, it is unfortunately not what Adderjan was looking for this turn. A 6th land would have let him totally lost one of the pack rats
and smite another,
and smite the other one. So he's not dead yet. He can still block a pack rat and then totally lost a pack rat, not lose his Void Wielder. And then next turn...
The proverbial mostly dead from Princess Bride.
Yes. He does not have a lot of years of his life left. Though, drawing that 4th land means Holzinger can also use Skinbrand Goblin this turn, which will clear out the Void Wielder if he elects to do that, which I think he might, just because once Korbel taps out to cast Totally Lost before damage, you know the way is clear. You might as well pay 1 red mana to kill a Void Wielder. So passing, going to make the rat first to make it a 4/4. And then casting your 5 mana spell instead of your 1 mana spell, which is a good idea.
Which is where and you see the 6th land would just be outstanding here.
Yeah, it
Skinbrand Goblin.
It actually would have been a blowout here if he had a 6th land. I mean, Holzinger might have played around the smite if he had a 6th land.
Sure.
But if he doesn't have a 6th land, I think that there's a good shot he just goes for it. Yep. So it makes his a goblin a 5/4.
So he falls to 5.
Yeah, he goes 6 actually, just because the one rat did get lost.
Oh yes.
Who knows where it went? But yeah,
there's your Hussar Patrol.
Yeah, a few turns too late here. Hussar Patrol plus smite kills a rat. The other 2 rats deal the lethal damage though. Well, let's see. Is Holzinger going to make a fourth pack rat? Hey, you got to keep fighting though. This is a team event. You don't you don't get to give up. So now you block the original rat because you're planning on smiting.
You're at 6, right?
Yeah, so now Holzinger actually just likes passing. Now, be that something's happened, he does have to make another rat.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, you got it.
All right, yeah, good job. Pretty valiant effort against a turn 2 pack rat for a 5-card hand.
Yeah, I mean, there was actually a fight there, and if he had drawn a 6th land, he had a chance. Looks like it's all going to go down to this third match here.
Dak Faden is the greatest thief in the multiverse. Follow his adventures in the Magic the Gathering comic produced by IDW. A special promo card unique to the IDW comic series comes in each issue. Find out more about these comics at wizards.com/magic merchandise.
Just got a glimpse of a Blood Baron of Vizkopa there, so that could be a nice one here. Looks like
not the new Blood Baron of Vizkopa that lets you give it +2/+2.
Yeah, that is not quite as powerful.
So right now we are looking at Mark Mulbach on your left, and that is Gabor Coxis on your right.
Yeah, and actually
Coxis.
I actually played against Gabor round 1 of Pro Tour Philadelphia, the one that Josh got second at, and Samuel Estradi won.
Zorius Arrestor getting in for 2 damage here.
And even though Gabor has out 2 red-green lands and potentially a 3rd, he actually is playing a Simic deck as well. So this is kind of the perils of the 3-color deck. The Orzhov deck here is curving a 2 into a 3, soon into a very good 5, and he's unable to cast spells.
And the Court Street Denizen also makes things very difficult because, you know, it's a 2-color deck. Also, you're going to have a high density of black-white cards.
Jeez, and there's a Cryptghast.
There you get a look at his hand.
Yeah, with the Bloodfray Giant we were remarking on earlier, actually. We were talking about it in deck build, because I remember watching them build, and the Bloodfray Giant kept going in and out because of the mana mostly. It's a very powerful card. But
right, a card you'd love to play, but your feeling was maybe it was difficult for them to reliably hit it on turn 4.
Yeah, I think
for a number of reasons.
I think I would have ended up playing it in his deck, and he did. But it is just one of the cards you just know that some of the times you draw it, you're not able to cast it. Cryptghast kind of going off here, allowing Mulbach to just
Extra trigger. I pay the extra. Comes into play. Tap.
Lots of stuff going on there. Tap your guy. Play a Blood Baron.
Yeah, Blood Baron, extort, tap your guy with Court Street Denizen, attack for 6.
Kick your dog.
Yeah. This might not have been the most close game I've ever seen in my life. Gabor he could, if you wanted to, I suppose, trade the Bloodfray Giant plus Assault Battery or Armed Dangerous there for the Blood Baron, but that's not really what he's looking. He's usually looking for a little more out of that card. So discuss his. He's got options. They're just not necessarily the ones you want.
You have to kill the Blood Baron, though, right?
I mean, yeah, that is one of his options here, but the problem is that
he's at 7.
You kill the Blood Baron, and then you just get attacked for 6 and get extorted for the last point. So I think looks like they want him to play a Cloudfin Raptor and be on defense, but there aren't very many paths to victory here. He has to hope that Mulbach has no cards in hand or no spells in hand because he's access to 7 mana. and a nice pair of leader. I like the team spirit, or the country pride. That's the rapid untapping of someone who just wants to get things over with.
Someone who's going to untap and tap both of your creatures.
Yeah.
2 mana. 2 mana. Right.
So it looks like the Kingpin's pat first.
Extra trigger.
Yeah, and then followed by a Vassal Soul, also extorting, also tapping a creature.
I mean, Gabor, it's okay to just pick up your cards right here.
Well, let's resolve the extort trigger. Yeah.
Trigger. Top this guy.
I mean, this is something you will see in Team Sealed. You end up with decks that are just absolutely insane. When you have 12 packs to work from,
Double extort. Trigger.
like this,
Okay,
like
that's
this Orzhov
enough.
deck just went off. I mean, this is one of the best starts I've seen in the format.
Some high fives and handshakes all around. Okay, it sounds like we're going to get the Austrian team rallied up here and find out a little bit about their event. And not with Sheldon doing an interview.
I'm only playing one rare, Stomping Ground. I think his deck is very good. His deck is good, but the rest are...
Welcome back to the booth. I'm Brian David Marshall. This is Luis Scott Vargas. We just watched Team Austria win, and I think we saw a little bit about, you know, the 2-color versus 3-color dynamic that we saw a lot of on the floor during deck build.
Yeah, and I was looking at as I was looking at deck build, it looked like most teams were trying to go with like 2-color decks if they could. And it looks like that's what Austria did, and that served them well. They had 2 aggressive 2-color decks. One had Pack Rat that you're not always going to have that option, but even just having a Rakdos deck and an Orzhov deck, both of which were very aggressive, made it so that they were able to win some fast matches.
And even when we're saying a 2-color deck, you can still gently splash a 3rd color into that 2-color deck without it being huge impact.
Yeah,
right?
you can play like 2 Guild Gates and then maybe like a basic, and then to splash 1 or 2 powerful cards, because you're not going to want to leave rares on the sideline. When you open like a Boros Battle Shaper, maybe you splash it in your Orzhov deck or your Gruul deck.
You wouldn't want to not play the most powerful cards possible at the expense of having good mana and being able to just play 2 colors.
Yeah, and in this format, you kind of can have it all, since with 12 packs, you have enough options that there is some configuration that lets you play not only your most powerful cards, but also with fairly decent mana. And it looks like maybe the Hungarian pool wasn't that good, because it looked like their Simic deck was not only had not the best mana, but they ended up having to play the Pursuit of Flight and some other like good aggressive cards, but not cards you want in like a straight 3-color deck.
Yeah, and a lot of times I see that you'll see something like their Simic deck had their Simic Guild Gates, but it's almost like you don't want those in there. You want the Gruul Guild Gates in your Simic deck that's splashing red.
Yeah, and with Bloodfray Giant, splashing red is almost getting to the point where again it's just straight three colors. Right. So you'd end up wanting to avoid that if you can, and you saw the Austrians just curve out with an Orzhov deck. Granted, that draw was just insane against any deck.
Yeah, there's not many situations where you're going to be able to beat that. Interesting that they had 2 black decks too, or just that's just the nature of the guilds.
Yeah, you end up splitting some of the colors fairly often.
Well, let's hear a little bit more from the Austrians about their deck and about their tournament so far. We'll throw it back down to the floor and Sheldon Menery.
Hey everybody, Sheldon Menery down here in the feature match area with Team Austria on a nice win pretty fast. Manuel Daniger, Mark Molbach, Thomas Danziger, Holtzinger, David Reitbauer. Now you guys came in as one of the early favorites in this match, and I mean in this tournament, and came in as the first seed in this pool. This first win, how do you think that positioned you to get into the next day?
I think we're pretty well positioned for the rest of the tournament, or for this day, and we didn't expect to finish in the first seed, but it was like we didn't have much time to prepare, but everything turned out great.
How did you approach the team deck building as you came into this?
The team deck building for the sealed? Yeah, we just figured that the multi-color cards are pretty strong, and there are like some guilds that you have to play, and by that you can figure out which colors are like weaker, the monocolored cards, and so we figured that we can build two two-color decks, and 3-color decks, which is a little bit weaker, but the other decks have a solid mana base and some rares, and it turned out pretty good.
So is Pack Rat a great rat or the greatest rat?
I'm not sure, but it just won me the game, but I can tell you at the end of the tournament.
Okay, that's Team Austria positioning themselves for a run into tomorrow. I'm Sheldon Menery. We're back down to the booth.
All right, thanks, Sheldon. That was great hearing from Team Austria, Thomas Holzinger, the Grand Prix, the Pro Tour Everson Restored top 8 competitor.
Yeah, and I've played against Thomas a number of times. So he plays well.
What do you think is the most... Oh, well, you know what? I'll ask you that later. Right now, it sounds like we're ready to throw it back down to the news desk.
Hello everyone, welcome to the, well, it's actually not the news desk. We've got the 4th feature match table here for you, and we're pressing it into service because we've got a fantastic feature lined up. We're so lucky. We got a huge response yesterday to Mr. Ben Stark, Hall of Fame elect, top 4 of the World Championships coming back tomorrow, when he came in yesterday and told us all about M14 Team Sealed. And we had a bit of a meeting at breakfast, and Ben said, Rich, I'm a bit worried about this morning because the truth is I've got a bit less to talk about with RTR Team Sealed today, because you just kind of, you sort it all out, then you look at all the good cards, you put all the guilds together, then you put the best gold cards in, they all go in the right deck, and it's all fine. And I thought, you've given me an idea. So at the table, we have a complete RTR Team Sealed pool. 4 boosters of Return to Ravnica, 4 of Guild Pact, and 4 of Dragon's Maze. Now, we have cheated just a teeny tiny bit because, well, the players out there, Ben, they had 70 minutes this morning. Due to complexity, they got 10 extra minutes. And we've got, if you're lucky, about 20 to find us 3 great decks. So, well, off you go.
Right, so the first thing you're going to do generally when you're building a Ravnica Team Sealed is separate your colors and your guilds. That's really different, obviously, from when you're building an M14 one or most of the other ones.
Okay.
The reason being, it's almost like there's 10 colors instead of 5. And when almost all the sets in Magic, you've got your 5 colors, black, red, blue, and green and white. In Return to Ravnica, you've got 10 guilds. Each guild is like a distinct color. Each guild is, you can either play it or you don't. Like if you play Azorius, you're playing blue and white. If you play Golgari, you're playing green and black.
For sure.
The best decks are generally 2-color decks in Limited.
Right.
Sometimes you're going to play 3 colors, sometimes you're going to splash a 3rd color. But more often than not, what you're looking for, your best decks are good 2-color decks.
Okay. So what you've got on the table, you've essentially divided it into 3 rows of 5. If we take a look, so you've got top row, which are your guilds, one set of guilds. Then you've got your middle row here, which are your 5 mono colors. And then you've got your other 5 guilds down at the bottom, and then the completely unsortable beck and call down here. All right.
Yeah. So, the very first step was to sort. And Team USA, I got to watch them during the deck building, did it this exact way, and I think it's a great way to do it. The first thing they did was sort just like this. They put the 5 colors in the middle, as you just pointed out, and then the 10 guilds, like say the 5 Gatecrash guilds over here at the top, and the 5 Return to Ravnica guilds at the bottom.
Okay.
So now we're completely sorted, and we can start trying to figure out which guilds are going to make the best decks.
Right.
The second step is generally to remove the shaft. We've got this stack of cards here. Some of them are somewhat playable. You might end up putting them in as a 22nd or 23rd if they go really well with what you've already got.
Okay.
But
give me the chaff pile, and we'll have a look at it. There's a Sinister Possession here, Dying Wish in back, Showstopper.
These are not strong limited cards.
Okay. Mending Touch to regenerate a target creature, Guild Feud, Chronic Flooding. Yeah, okay, I can see that these are, you haven't really spared the blushes of some of these cards, have you? They're genuinely not super good.
These are not good limited cards. Like, you may play with one, but it's not going to pull you into a color. It's not going to make you want to make that deck or anything like that.
And let's face it, with 12 packs, 12 lots of 14, 15, there's a lot of actual real estate issues to deal with at the table. So if you can get rid of a big stack of things like that, just makes making the choices a little more obvious.
Right. Normally, I enjoy the strategy a lot more than the physical construction constraints, but, you know, in Team Sealed, like, you know, you have a lot of cards, and you have to get down to 3 decks in an hour, as you pointed out. So it's important to sort, and it's important to remove the stuff that isn't going to pull you in a direction, so you can really focus on what is. Focus on the important things.
Okay, so let's get to the important things.
Well, the first thing I'm normally going to look at is the gold cards, because I know that at least one of my 3 decks is going to have some black in it. So I'm not that worried about playing this Killing Glare. It's a good card, but I'm going to get to play it. 100%, almost 100% of the time, this is going to make one of my 3 decks.
Okay.
On the other hand, there are good cards like, say, this Sky Knight Legionnaire that I may get to play or I may not get to play. Why? Because I don't know if I'm going to have a Boros deck. We're going to have 3 decks, and we've got 10 guilds. So there's a above average chance I'm not even going to get to play the Sky Knight Legionnaire.
Right.
So the very first thing I'm going to do after all the sorting is look through my gold cards and see if any of them really stand out at me. If any of these piles are like, wow, I've got great Rakdos stuff or awesome Simic stuff, you know, something that I know is I want to play Simic because I have awesome Simic gold cards.
Okay, so just for the sake of argument, Burning Tree Emissary and Pit Fight going Gruul. Demir over here, we've got Call of the Nightwing, Death Cult Rogue.
Well,
we've got a
it's good that you point that out, because actually the very first stack Gruul, as you can see, we have like no Gruul gold cards. This card you can play in any green or any red deck, and this card is okay, not very good in limited. So we have no Gruul cards, so we're almost certainly not going to play Gruul. You can almost eliminate Gruul just at a glance.
So green-red aggro, probably not.
Probably not, because we have no green-red gold cards. No, nothing. We don't miss out on anything by not playing green-red. We can play all our good green and red cards in our Boros deck and our Simic deck.
Okay, what about Demir then? Death Cult Rogue, got a couple of those, Call of the Nightwing, Pilfer Plans, far and away.
Now we're talking.
Okay.
Call of the Nightwing is a very strong card. Blue-black gold card. Far and away is a very strong card if you're both blue and black. Now we've got some cards that might want to pull us in that direction.
All right. Well, next door to blue-black, we've got black-white. We've got a Vizkopa Confessor, the huge Arms Beast, a bit of Removal Executioner Swing, and a fantastic 2-drop in Tithe Drinker.
So I would say Orzhov is more like Gruul, where Alms Beast is very splashable, and we could easily work it into a different 2-color deck that's either white or black, and we're not going to miss out on much if we don't play Orzhov. I mean, Tithe Drinker's good, Confessor's okay. That's pretty much all we're going to lose.
All right, let's go across to blue-green then, where we've got Krasis Incubation, Double Beetle Form Mage, we've got a Biomass Mutation, Drakewing Krasis, and the split card Give Take. So what do you make of those?
Well, as you can see, our blue-green is very strong. Beetle Form Mage is a marquee common for Simic. Krasis Incubation is a direct removal spell with upside. Drakewing Krasis is nice. Give and Take is nice. There's a good chance we're going to want to play a Simic deck.
All right. You've already mentioned Skylight Legionnaire, but what else do we have in Boros?
Oh, we've got 2 First Blaze and a Wojak Halberdier, so those are some pretty good Boros gold cards. Arrows of Justice is also pretty good, but it's also very easy to cast. It's not actually a Boros gold card. We can play it any red deck, any white deck.
Okay, now we go down to our bottom row here. Let's start over here on the left, and we're going to look at Azorius, which has a Skymark Rock, which is a very nice card, Deputy of Quittles, and Restore the Peace.
Right, not much here. We're almost certainly not going to play Azorius. I mean, Skynight Rock is very good, but splashable, and Restore the Peace is barely playable. I probably could have almost moved it to the shaft pile.
I'm going to do that.
Okay, and Deputy of Quittles is a fine card, but it's not pulling us into blue-white. It's not pulling us into Azorius.
There are lots of blue-red cards, and in amongst there, I can't help noticing we have a Planeswalker, Mr. Ral Zarek. Yeah,
he's good. He's good. He's very splashable though, so it doesn't mean we have to play Izzet. Like if we don't play Izzet, we're probably going to lose, like, you know, maybe our Izzet Status Caster or Frostburn Weird, but we will not lose Ralzark. He's going to be splashed into a non-Izzet deck. As you can see, we have almost no green-white stuff. A lone common bond, a Drowned Militia is not even really a green-white gold card. So we're almost certainly not going to play Celestia, just like Gruul.
Sure.
Our black-red or Rakdos is incredibly strong. We have 3 Augur Sprees and a Sire of Insanity. We don't necessarily have to play 2-color Rakdos to use those cards because they're somewhat splashable, but we will definitely be playing 3 Augur Sprees and a Sire of Insanity in some deck.
There is no world in which that doesn't happen.
No. And
finally, you've got Golgari,
which is also not very strong. We've got a couple Trestle Trolls and no real power cards.
Okay, now the weird thing is, it feels to me like you've almost kind of established where we are, and yet you haven't even looked at half the cards yet.
Well, we've narrowed it down. Like we know that we want to be looking at Demir, at Simic, at Boros, at Izzet, and at Rakdos, which is really important because with 10 guilds, like you only have so much time, you only have so many cards, you can't lay out every combination of every deck. Now we've got 5 decks that we're going to take a look at and try and build the best 3, and it's almost certainly going to be 3 of those 5, except if you wanted to build the Gatekeeper deck.
Right.
This is a little bit of a curveball. It's I call it Plan B.
Right.
And it's a good deck. I don't think it's as good in general as a nice aggressive 2-color guild deck with a light splash or not, but if you can't build 3 good decks, you can often build this gatekeeper deck using all the gates and the gatekeepers.
All the gates and all the gatekeepers.
The beauty of this deck is that the other decks don't want these cards.
Yeah, for sure.
So you end up being able to make a deck that is pretty good and not pulling anything out of the other decks.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 9 guild gates here, so there's
a shot. We definitely could make the gatekeeper deck should we so choose. And we can't decide that yet because it's plan B, not plan A. Plan A is going to be to try and build 3 good 2-color decks out of our good gold cards and out of our good guilds. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Now that we've narrowed it down, we're going to take a look at, say, our non-gold cards and see if we can make good decks.
Okay, I'm going to leave Ben for a minute to get on with that next phase of our building because we're starting to get some results coming in. So I wonder if we can take a look at Pool 1 first of all. This features Ireland, Estonia, Croatia and Malaysia. And there you see the standings. We have our first results in from that pool. And first of all, big result, Hannes Karem and Estonia have defeated Ireland by 2-0. This was the top 2 seeds. That's how the computer paired them all up. It was top 2 seeds in round 1. Ireland lose, Estonia win, and at that point that means Ireland have lost their loss to give, because remember, because of their top seed, if they go 2-1, they will make it through to the top 16 later today. Estonia in with a great chance now at 1-0. You also see the rest of that result has panned in. Croatia over Malaysia, the 3 seed over the 4 seed, which is not a huge upset. Croatia are a very, very decent team, as we know. Toni Portolan and Grga Petric-Maritic amongst them. So Estonia and Croatia in the box seat after 1 round of 3. I'm wondering if we can take a look perhaps at Pod 4. We might cycle through these and head on down because there's some interesting stuff going on there. Results coming in all the time. Also Pod 5. Here is Pod 4 for you. Luxembourg against Belgium are still to go. But great news for France. Raphael Levy, Stefan Soubrier, Timothée Simoneau and Jan Guthmann. They are in position where if they now win either of their last 2 matches against Luxembourg and Belgium, and look, bang, there you go. There is the result from the bottom table in that pool. Belgium have beaten Luxembourg in a little local battle. I bet there'll be some Belgians at the Luxembourg PTQ in 2014. Alain Bergeau came in yesterday from Organised Play to tell us all about that. So Luxembourg are 0-1 and now really must win their last 2. Belgium, the bottom seeds, Vincent Lemoine, Moraine, Leibert and friends, they are in a position now where they're still in control of their own destiny. 2-1 might be enough. 3-0, of course, absolutely will be. So that's some of the results coming in. I just want to give you one result from pool number 2. This is New Zealand. Walker McMurdo and friends, they have defeated Scotland, and Scotland are a bottom seed. There you see that. New Zealand, the 3 seed, over Scotland, the 4 seed. We're still waiting to find out what's happening in the match between Singapore, your top seed, and the South Africans. So that's what's going on around the standings just at the moment. Meanwhile, Ben, sitting beside me, is busy turning this pretty wide table into every inch of real estate he can possibly find. Ben, what's going on?
So I laid out the Boro stack. It didn't look very good. It was a few cards short. The spells were good, but the creatures weren't that great. I didn't really feel like it was going to make that good of a deck.
I guess you want lots of what Jack Halberdiers and Daring Sky decks, a critical mass of 2-drops?
Right, which we didn't have. We were able to get to like 3 or 4 2-drops, but nowhere near the 6, 7, 8 that you really want.
Absolutely, okay.
So then I started looking at our Rakdos deck, and as you can see, our Rakdos deck is incredible.
Right, so let's focus in on this Rakdos deck that we've got here. So, in terms of creatures, there's a Sire of Insanity, Desecration Demon, another rare, Ogre Jailbreaker, Syndicate Enforcer, our 3-drops, here they are, Ember Beast, another one, Gutter Snipe, the fantastic Spider Thug and Sewer Shambler, and then these 2-drops, Gutter Skulk, double Basilica Screecher, which of course has a home in an Orzhov deck, Skinbrand Goblin, Gorehouse Chainwalker. If we take a look at the spells across the top here, you've got those triple Augur Sprees that we talked about, Stab Wound, what a fabulous spell that is, Grisly Spectacle, Killing Glare, then you've got Arrows of Justice, Traitorous Instinct, and pretty expensive, but it does do what it says on the tin, Punish the Enemy. That is a really, really good deck.
Yes, this is an incredible deck.
Now, you said you normally play with Martin User and Shuhei Nakamura.
Yeah.
if this was the pool that the three of you were building and they were just busy reading the paper and letting you get on with it, who ends up with this deck and why?
Martin Yuza, because he loves aggro decks. And when you've got a team, everybody should be able to play up their strengths. And Shuhei loves control decks. He drafts all these 3-color Esper decks and 3-color Grixis and Bug decks, and that's his style. That's what he likes to play with. Martin loves a 2-color aggro deck with removal and pump spells and a good curve. That's his style. So we would almost definitely give Martin this deck.
Okay.
And I would almost definitely build this deck out of this pool. But the reason being, you really want to build the best decks you can. Teams often make the mistake, they ask themselves the question, should we build 2 really good decks and 1 really bad deck? Should we build 3 okay decks? Should we even out the power level? Well, you don't really want to dictate that. You want to let the cards dictate that for you.
Okay.
And what you want to do is build the best decks you can. When we build this deck, we don't have to splash. It doesn't need to take things from other decks. It is just a very good Rakdos deck.
Okay, I'm going to move you on because time is ticking by. Results are coming in as well. So I'm going to take this Gruul deck away. We're going to assume that's pretty much deck 1. And now let's see what else might be coming. While Ben starts on that, let me tell you a couple more results that are coming in. And I'm going to take you. Wow, this is a huge result. I'm going to take you to pool number 3, and let's take a look at what's going on in pool 3, because I can tell you that there we have a result in, and in the first round, Venezuela have defeated Team USA. That is a huge result for Venezuela. They come in as the number 2 seed. No disaster for Team USA, of course, because as the number 1 seed, 2 and 1 will guarantee them into the top 16. But the fact that Venezuela have leapfrogged the US, you see the bottom 2 seeds in that pool, Greece and Israel, that Shahar Shenhar, the 19-year-old, you'll see him again tomorrow in the World Championship. And Simon Berthier leads a Greek squad that is pretty experienced. They are the number 3 seed. But both those players, the Greeks and the Israelis, will be thrilled that Venezuela has knocked USA off the seed 1 perch, if you like, and dragged them back down well and truly into the mix. Because if the top seed keep winning early, that locks up a slot, and only 2 of 4, remember, in every pod get through. So massive result, Venezuela over USA. I can also tell you that in pod 8 we have our first result there, and this another great story here on day 2 of the World Magic Cup. This is Chile. Felipe Tapia Becerra had a chat with the Chileans this morning. They were super happy with their work on day 1. Why wouldn't they be? They have beaten Even Flock and the Slovak Republic in the battle of the top 2 seeds. So Slovak Republic come back to the pack. Chile now know that a win in either of their last 2 rounds will see them in to the second set of pools, when we will go from 32 down to 16. All right, more results coming in as we go, but let's get back to Ben here at the table. And Ben, what have you got for us this time?
So now we've got a Simic deck. We had great Simic gold cards, if you remember, with the 2 Beetle, 4 Mage, and the Crassus Incubation, give and take. So I've built a Simic deck. It's nowhere near as good as our Rakdos deck, of course. This is going to be our second best deck, but it is still a very good deck. We've got a nice curve. Simic wants to be very aggressive generally.
Okay.
You can see we've got 6 2-drops. We've got 6 3-drops and 3 4-drops, and then we've got the always powerful Ral Zarek on the splash. We've got Crassus Incubation, Give and Take, some Runner's Banes in Action Junction. We've got Giant Growth, Slaughterhorn to get through. These are almost 4/4 flyers. I think this is almost certainly going to be our second best deck and our second build.
Okay, now I want to ask you about this deck because I'm interested in the overall power level of Team Sealed versus Draft. Because if I was thinking of a Simic deck in Draft, I might expect, when I look at these creatures, I'm just totting them up, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 creatures, and across the top here, we've got 8 spells. In a typical good Simic Draft deck, we might expect this to be 20 creatures, maybe even 21, and just 2 or 3 spells. So this would imply that we're actually quite a long way behind what we might want to be as a Simic deck. Well, so how does that work?
The difference is kind of a niche thing there. It's that Simic in Straight Gate Crash revolved around Evolve, like, immensely. And, you know, Cloudfin Raptors and Shamble Sharks, and that's why you played 17, 18, 20 creatures, because your creatures were growing your previous creatures like a spell would.
Okay.
In this case, we have good creatures. We have Frostburn Weirds and Brush Striders and Crow Warriors and Crassus and Double Beetle Form Mage, but we don't have those Evolve guys. We have a couple of this Battering Crassus who's okay, not that great, but we don't have a host of cheap evolved creatures, so we're not concerned with having 17, 20 creatures.
Right.
We're perfectly happy to have 15 as long as we have some pumps, some spells, some removal, some ways to make sure those 15 creatures are always able to do their job, which is generally to be attacking and blocking.
Okay, now we've got a black-red deck, which we know is really great, and then we've got essentially a blue-green deck with little bits of red here and there for Ral Zarek, Flux Charger, and so on. This seems to be a theme of the weekend. What has White done wrong?
So, in M14, White legitimately isn't very good. In Ravnica Block, this is just a coincidence. White is strong. I think Orzhov was the best guild in Gatecrash. I think Celestia was the best guild in Return to Ravnica.
Okay.
So there's no knock on White. White was perfectly fine in this block. We just coincidentally opened a lot of Simic cards and a lot of Rakdos cards.
Right.
So we wanted to make a Simic deck and a Rakdos deck.
Yeah, and in particular here, unlike in Draft, you really, really do want to, as you say, let the cards come to you and tell you what you want to be doing.
Yeah, because we're going to get to play all our single color cards no matter what we play, as we talked about. But if we didn't build a Simic deck, we would either have to splash or lose double Beetle Formage, Drakewing Crassus, Crassus Incubation. If we didn't build a Rakdos deck, we would have had 3 Augur Sprees and a Sire of Insanity sitting on the sidelines. So in this case, we just happened to have Simic and Rakdos cards, so White kind of got left in the dark.
Okay, so I'm going to get this deck out of the way as well, and now it's time for the really fun stuff to start, because this is what the teams were going through this morning, where they were sitting there and it's like, okay, we've arrived at 2 pretty clear-cut decks, but now we've got real problems as we try and work out what on earth are we going to do with the rest. So while Ben gets started on deck 3, because he's got a lot of cards, I mean, look at that. It looks like a discarded booster draft, doesn't it, over there? Why don't we take you through all the pods, and we'll see how things are going as we tick down towards the end of round 1 here on day 2. So let's begin with pool number 1, and here we have Ireland, Estonia, Croatia, and Malaysia. As you know, Ireland have lost out to Estonia and Croatia over Malaysia. So Ireland have lost their advantage, Estonia in good position there. Let's move on to pool number 2. And there you see we're still waiting for the top 2, Singapore and South Africa. Great job by Craig Leach and the South African boys getting into day 2. And New Zealand with Walker McMurdo have a win over Scotland. That loss for Scotland means their destiny is no longer in their hands. Even if they get to 2-1, they will need some help with the tie breaks, because if they're on the same record as anyone else in the pool, they will be under in terms of seeding. Let's look at pool number 3. And you already knew that the United States had lost out to Venezuela, and now I can tell you, look at that Shenha up against it. The 2 players from the World Championship top 4 coming back tomorrow. Josh Utter-Leighton, he's lost his opening round of the day. Shahar Shenha for Israel, he's lost his opening round of the day to Simon Birtue and the Greeks, and that means that Venezuela and Greece advance after 1 round to the top of the pile, and the US, well, they know 2 wins will get them in. Israel know destiny not in their hands. They need 2 wins and some tiebreak help. Let's go to pool number 4. And this time, this is finished now. You saw it go last time round. We got to the scoreboard. Belgium have defeated Luxembourg. France have defeated Thailand. And you would argue, really, that those are, in some senses, the best 2 teams in that pod. The Belgians do look very, very good on paper. They've got multiple top 8s between them. Vincent Lemoire from Paris 2011. He was 1 life point away from being a team world champion in 2004 at San Francisco. He missed 1 point of damage in the final game of that tournament, and that was the difference between 1 life and no life. Maybe Vincent Lemoire tomorrow can be a team world champion here at the World Magic Cup. France 1-0. On we go to pool number 5. Let's see what we've got. Austria, well, they defeated Hungary. You saw that on camera. And then England lose out to El Salvador. This is the group of death, and that is ferociously well done to El Salvador, because if they can get out of this pool, my word, I tell you, they can win the whole thing, because this is a brutal group packed full of talented players. And El Salvador, they just don't care. They just keep on winning. What a great story for them. Pool number 6, on we go. Let's see what we've got. Australia, they were the top seed coming in, but they have lost out to Alvin Ori Gislason and the Icelandic team. Brazil and Slovenia, which I think is one of the headline matches of this round, by the way. Remember, when you see Slovenia, think Japan, because that's what it would have been if Slovenia, Robin Dolar and Mexico had not defeated Japan in the last round yesterday. So Brazil, Slovenia, they're still going. Willie Adel, Alison Abe heading the Brazilian lineup at 0-0. And remember, either of those losing, destiny not in your hands. Australia win the next two, they will still go through. Iceland in prime position there. Pool 7, who's up next? Well, we've got one result outstanding. It's the top two. And who knew that Mexico and Turkey would be the top two? I got a tweet from a Mexican yesterday. He said, "You said our team was rubbish and we had no chance of making the top 32. And I said, I'm pretty sure those were not my exact words, but hey, I didn't think you'd make the top 32. That is true. And they are still playing it against Emir Alimoglu and the Turks. Czech Republic, though, Stanislav Sivka. This looked like a team of 1+3, where Sivka was the headline act and the three players with him pretty inexperienced. Well, if that's true, the headline act is really doing the business. Much more likely, these guys we haven't heard of a lot, maybe we're going to hear about them in the future. They are 1-0 over Mike Krasnitsky, Grand Prix winner from 2013, and Ukraine. One more pool to bring you. Pool 8, here it is. This one's in the books. Chile, Felipe Tapia Becerra, your reigning Rookie of the Year. He said it was huge in terms of South American magic. Latin America, just great to have him winning Rookie of the Year. He has won over the Slovak Republic, even Flock & Co. Meanwhile, Finland, this is a surprise. I thought Finland were one of those teams that would get in the back door the last rounds yesterday with Max Scherblom and Sami Hegqvist early, but they have lost to Belarus. Belarus still in control of their destiny. And it looks to me like, I wonder if it sounds to me like Pool 6, we've got some more outcome. And look at that. Wow, that puts the cat amongst the pigeons, and no mistake. That is not a misprint. That is 0-0-1. Brazil and Slovenia have drawn their opening match here. That's in limited. How do you do that? I understand if it's blue, white, red flash mirror in the deciding game. What were they doing? Were they milling each other out? That's extraordinary news. All right, we are back with Ben Stark, Limited Master, top 4 of the World Championship, and of course, Hall of Fame elect. Ben, we gave you a couple minutes. I gave you as long as I could.
I needed it, Rich.
So now, give it to me. What on earth are we doing with everything
So you remember I mentioned Plan B, the Gatekeeper deck?
Ah!
Well, after we divvied up blue, green, and red, black, that only left us white, and it left, but what it left us was a lot of Gatekeepers and some powerful spells. And we had a very good pool for this deck. You can see plenty of mana fixing. We have the Axebane Guardian, one of the staples of the deck. We've got some good clue stones. We've got one of the nice controlling key runes. And then we've got some powerful cards distributed of the 4 colors. We left the red out because the red was all already used, being splashed into the Simic deck and being the staple of the Rakdos deck. And then we had 3 Premier Gatekeepers, the white one being the best one in my opinion, and the blue one is very good also.
So blue is the card and Sunspire is gain lots of life?
Makes a 2-2.
Oh, the 2-2, right. Green's the good life.
And obviously in limited for 4 mana, if you get a 2/4 and a 2/2, that is just an incredible card.
Yeah.
So as you can see here, this deck doesn't look as good as our Rakdos deck, probably doesn't even look as good as our Simic deck, but don't let it fool you. I mean, this is a control deck. We've got nice walls. We can be draining them out with our Basilica Guards and our Knight of the Obligation. We have great blockers with a Guardian of the Gateless and 2 Trestle Trolls. We got Axebane powering things out very quickly with a lot of defenders.
Yep.
And we've got lots of power. We've got Beckon Call, an amazing card that can win the game all by itself for 8 mana, and we're going to get to 8 mana if the game goes according to our plans, because we have Verdant Haven, Axebane Guardian, Gatecreeper Vine, some Clue Stones, and a control deck full of lots of toughness. You'll notice the theme of toughness among the cards in our deck.
Okay.
1-3, 0-3, 1-4, 1-4, 2-4, 2-4, 3-3, but it gets much bigger when it blocks.
Yep.
What we're trying to do with this deck is hold them off and then play our game-winning powerful cards. And we've got several ways to do that. We've got Tristani Summoner, we've got Beckon Call, we're drawing cards, we're making multiple guys, we got a 6/6 here. That's pretty much the plan.
Okay, for most teams, they don't have you in the middle seat, Martin User on the right seat, and them in seat 3. For most of us, it's us and 2 friends at the local game store. Now, if you are less experienced, if you are the least good of the 3 players, I look at a deck like this and the 3 that you've built, and I think, yeah, I want the Rakdos deck because I can win with that in 10 minutes while no one's watching me, and I can just like turn things sideways. It's pretty straightforward. I look at this deck and I'm kind of terrified because I think basically I would just want to hand off every decision to my teammates.
No, you're correct. I mean, if we built these 3 decks, we would give this deck to Shuhei. We wouldn't even think about it.
Okay.
He's the best player on our team. He's one of the best to ever play the game. And this is a very tough, very grindy deck where the games are going to go long. You're going to have to make a lot of decisions. You're going to be on defense the entire game until you turn it. So this is definitely the deck you would want to give to your best player on your team.
Okay.
Most likely, I would play the Simic deck. Martin would play the Rakdos deck, and Shuhei would play this deck.
Okay. Are there any really nice cards that you are pretty upset about that over on this left-hand side of the table you've left out?
We did a pretty good job of getting most of our best cards in. I would say Call of the Nightwing is quite good, and we were able to splash far away into the stack because it does what this deck wants. It's just great in this deck. I mean, Bounce a Gatekeeper, Edict the opponent, but Call of the Nightwing doesn't really fit what this deck's trying to do. We don't really have great attackers. We're unlikely to have something to cipher this on and then to keep attacking with. So Call of the Nightwing sitting out, I wasn't happy about. Blast of Genius is an okay card. It would be great in this deck, but I kind of eschewed red in this deck. It's possible that with Axebane Guardian, a Gatekeeper and 2 gates, I should actually play the Blast in this deck. I may have overlooked. I realized that we didn't need to splash red. We could have this deck be 4 colors, not 5, and I'm correct. But because of the fact that we happen to have 2 red gates that we're not using in another deck, although I guess we could use this actually in our blue-green deck for the red splash, but it's important to have as many gates as possible with your 3 Gatekeepers. I set aside the 2 Izzet gates for the Simic deck with the red splash because we're going to need 3 to 4 red sources in that deck. So having these 2 over there, and I wanted to have 7. 7's a good number for the Gatekeepers. You don't necessarily want to have 10 gates because then all your lands come into play tapped, but you do want these on almost every time, even starting on turn 4. So my target number is generally about 7, 8, somewhere in that vicinity. But yeah, so Blast of Genius is a pretty good card. It kind of sucks having it on the sideline, and maybe it shouldn't be on the sideline, to be honest. This could probably work its way into this deck. We have a lot of sources for the single red and the casting cost. Our Boros stuff is probably our biggest loss. These 4 cards are some pretty nice Boros beatdown cards.
Right, so we've got the Viashino First Blade, 2 copies of that, the 3/2 Watchek Halberdiers, and the Sky Knight Legionnaire, which was the very first Boros card we looked back right at the start of all
and
this.
my initial gut was going to be that we were going to play Boros because when you have 4 nice gold cards like this, but when I laid it out, all of our white cards were very controlling, and they fit the Gatekeeper deck very well, and they were not aggressive, and they did not fit an aggressive style Boros deck very well with these cards at all. So it made a lot more sense to pair the white with some of the green mana fixing and make a nice control deck than it did to pair it with these Boros aggressive gold cards.
Okay, there are a couple of last results to bring you. I'm going to take you to pool 2, first of all, and we'll see what's going on in that one, where you see that we finally have that result from the top of the standings. Remember, it was top 2 against each other, bottom 2 against each other in round 1. And here, the top seed has gone down. Singapore back to the pack. And South Africa, like I say, a really emerging story here, because at 1-0 as a second seed, they're in with a great shout of making it through. And I can tell you that you are going to see those boys from South Africa in action in the feature match area coming right up. Their next match is against Scotland the Brave, who at 0-1 absolutely must win to see whether they can keep their dreams of a Team World Cup alive. Let us take one more look at this table, which has miraculously, through the brains of this man here, turned into 3 decks. I'm going to take you through from top to bottom. Up here, we have our Rakdos deck. Here are our creatures: your Sire of Insanity, Desecration Demon, Ogre Jailbreaker, Syndicate Enforcer, Sewer Shambler. At 3, Splatterthug, Gutter Snipe, the pair of Emberbeasts, the 3/4 that can't attack or block alone. A bunch of 2-drops, Skimran Goblin, the Gorehouse Chain Walker, of course with Unleash. A couple of Orzhov style cards, Basilica Screecher and Scudderthulk. Then your spells, and aren't these exciting? August Spree, Stab Wound, Killing Glare, Grisly Spectacle, the Arrows of Justice, Traitorous Instinct, and Punish the Enemy. That's deck 1, so that is your deck 1 up at the top there. Let's move down, and now we get to our slightly complicated deck, which is here in the middle. Our spells, we've got an Orzhov Key Rune here, Runner's Bane, Far Away, a couple of Clue Stones. It's not often I hear the words, we've got a couple of good Clue Stones there, which I heard you say, and I thought, I beg your pardon?
Well, the Clue Stones are really good in this deck, because in most draft decks, they don't offer anything because you have a low curve and whatnot, but this deck is trying to power out these incredible spells: Trostani Summoner, Beckon Call, Courser's Accord.
Yeah, when you look at the top end here, we've got Guardian of the Gateless at 5, Courser's Accord at 6, your 2/3/3 Centaurs, Trostani Summoner, which if we put it on this table, well, we wouldn't have room because all the creatures would be out here somewhere. And then we have Beckon second call, of course, with fully exciting rare. As we go down the creature spells, Knight of Obligation, this is the Gatekeeper's deck, 1 Opal Lake, 2 Sunspire, you've got the fabulous Skymark Rock and Arms Beast, and then a couple of Trestle Tolls, Axebane Guardian, Verdant Haven, bit of fixing, double Basilica Guards, Keening Apparition, Concordia Pegasus, and Gatecreeper Vine. So many defenders. And then, as Ben says, look at all this row here. It is just gate after gate after gate after gate, and that's exactly what you want for fixing. We didn't even bother with the last two because they're going to belong somewhere else. That's deck 2. And then down here, deck 3, let's go through. Flux Charger, Scab Clan Charger, the Thrashing Moss Dog. Ooh, a foil. Someone will compete for that later.
It's a very nice card, too.
It is a very nice card. 2 Beetle Mage, your Drakeman Crassus, Slaughterhorn, Battering Krasis, 2 of those, and then plenty of cheap guys here. Your 3/1 Vigilant Brush Strider, Crawl Warrior, great card late, Frostburn Weird, oh that's weird, Burning Tree Emissary, Metropolis Sprite, Disciple of the Old Ways, and then your spells over here. Inaction Injunction, Giant Growth, Runner's Bane, and then Krasis Incubation, Pit Fight, Ral Zarek. Someone gets a Planeswalker at the end of all this. Goodness gracious me, Ben Stark, you did that by my reckoning in round about half an hour, all on your own. I tell you what, here's an idea. It's pretty clear to me that you don't need Shuhei Nakamura and Martin User, and you know, available. I'm just saying.
Oh, I'll remember that. When is the next Team GP?
Ladies and gentlemen, fantastic to have him here. He's going to be back for the World Championship tomorrow. That's Ben Stark. Congratulations to him. So I can tell you, let's tell you that we are heading towards the second round of pool play. A reminder, seeding matters. If you are a #1 seed and you go 2-1, you are guaranteed to get through to the next round, okay? So that is utterly certain. 2-1, if you're a top seed, gets you in. If you're a second seed, 2-1 puts you in pretty good shape. The only way you can be certain is 3-0. Now, what happens if you're in the bottom 2? Well, winning is the correct answer. It's possible to get in at 2-1. It's possible if you're a top seed to get in at 1 and 2. If it's seed 4 who goes 3-0, everyone else 1 and 2, you would make it in as a top seed. But right now, we are ready for stage 1, round 2, and in the feature match area, it's all the S's all the time. It's South Africa 1-0 against Scotland 0-1. It's must win for the Tartan Army. Let's get down to the booth. It's time for round 2 of the World Magic Cup 2013.